What's going on, everyone? Kim Becker and Arif Dean here before Game 5 of the first round of the NHL playoffs between the Kraken and the Avalanche. Arif, some drama here with Cale Makar. Obviously, he's been suspended for one game due to the interference with Jared McCann. Do you think that was justified?
Absolutely. I mean, it was, as soon as we saw that hit happen in Seattle, everybody on press row, all the Avalanche reporters, we were kind of taken off guard. We had to do a little bit of a double take to see if it was Cale Makar. I heard his explanation. It makes sense, but it's a suspendable hit. He ultimately, the way that I put it is, imagine the roles were reversed and imagine the Avalanche's leading goal scorer had shot the puck. So let's say Mikko Rantanen or Nathan MacKinnon had shot the puck, it deflected up, and then they put their stick down, they stopped bracing, and then got slammed into the boards, injured, and out for Game 5. That's what I'm trying to tell Avalanche fans that are coming at me that the suspension was not justified. It absolutely was. The late whistle does not matter.
Yeah.
I know the ref didn't blow the whistle right away when the puck went out of play. That does not matter. What matters is Cale Makar lost track of the puck. If on the ice during gameplay, the player that is hitting someone else loses track of the puck and then hits a player and says, I thought he had the puck, you're still getting a suspension. So the intent wasn't there for Cale Makar to do what he did. But the reality is the outcome is what it is he hit a guy that was not bracing for it. And look, here's the other thing, because people keep asking me this as well. Had Jared McCann noticed or, been aware that Cale Makar was going to finish his check and braced for it and taken the hit and not fallen and not gotten hurt, there would probably not be a suspension. There probably wouldn't have even been a penalty. Cale Makar would have just hit the guy, gotten some pushes and shoves back, and realized the puck was out of play, and then you drop the puck for the next whistle for the face-off, in the Avalanche zone. But that's not the way it played out. The fact that McCann got injured is something that matters, and when people try to differentiate the two and say that there shouldn't need to be an injury for a suspension, that's completely false, and it's just not the reality of the world we live in. Yeah. There is an NHL executive that once said, if you get arrested for a DUI, you're not going to get the same punishment as if, God forbid, when you're arrested for a DUI, it's because you hit a pedestrian on the street. When injury is involved, the action of what happened on that play or on that injury is going to directly affect the way that you are punished for it. And that's what happened here with Cale. Honestly, right. To be completely honest, I was predicting 2 games. The fact that it's 1 game is because it's Cale Makar, is because he is a superstar in this league with no track record, no history, but the NHL cannot completely let it slide. It is a suspendable hit. Cale Makar did not know that the puck went out of play. He did not mean to injure the guy. He certainly did not know that Jared McCann was going to stop racing and stop skating and ultimately not be prepared to be hit. But in the end, Cale Makar is a very strong guy. And when you do that to somebody who's not ready for the hit because he's looking at the puck that's already falling into the stands with a fan catching it, that's the result of it. It's unfortunate for the Kraken to not have their top goal scorer. It's even more unfortunate that the Avalanche will have to play without Cale Makar. But to answer the question, it is absolutely a justified suspension for a player that did not mean it, but ultimately, made a mistake and had a bad read.
So what are your thoughts on the refs making it a minor when it initially was a major then?
So that's an interesting call. The optics of it doesn't look good for the NHL when that happens, but ultimately it's hard to say. Would I have kept it a major? Probably, because the player was injured on the play. But the reality is when Cale went to hit the guy, so this is kind of the justification that I think the refs in that game had, was when Cale went to hit the guy, he didn't blow him up right away. He actually did the smart NHL player thing to do of wait until you're shoulder to shoulder, then hit the guy. And by doing that, he kind of mitigated the impact on the player. But ultimately, the player wasn't ready for the hit, so the impact was not mitigated at all. I think that's the way that the referees were looking at it. The other thing is the NHL recently put in this rule last couple of years that you can call a major and then downgrade it to a minor or even knock it off completely is the new rule they put in this past summer if the hit is not deemed to be a major penalty. You cannot take a minor penalty and knock it off the board, but you can take a major and knock it down to a 2 or to 0. Mm-hmm. So ultimately what the NHL did was it gave the referees this get out of jail free card. If you're not sure in the moment, call it a 5 and review it.
Okay.
So had that rule not been in place, I confidently believe that they probably would have just called it a 2-minute minor for interference, and that's it. But since that rule is in place where you can call it a 5 and then wipe it completely or lower it to a 2, something that you cannot do with a 2, the referees should be taking advantage of that get out of jail free card. And I think that's what happened there.
Okay. All right. All right. Makes sense. How do you think the Avs will adjust without Cale Makar tonight for game 5?
It's they're gonna have to do it by committee. This is a guy that, I mean, we can't say enough about what Cale Makar means. A lot of the games the Avalanche have won recently, and especially the 2 in this series, have been because of Makar, Mikko, and Nate. And without Cale, for starters, the power play, Devon Taves at morning skate was handling power play 1 duty, so expect him to step into that role. The Avs have only scored 1 power play goal, so it can't get any worse than that, I don't think. Obviously, unless you score 0, but they're going to have to do it by committee. It's going to be unfortunate, but you have the bodies and the skill to do it. You have Bo Byram, you have Sam Girard, you have Devon Taves, you have Josh Manson, who's been probably playing the worst hockey he's played with the Avalanche these 4 games, which is unfortunate for him. With that penalty in overtime and then a penalty in the first game, just not a great look for Josh. This is his opportunity to gain more minutes, gain the trust of the coaching staff, and come out flying after this game. It is going to be a tough game. You don't want to lose this one heading back to Seattle. The arena over there is absolutely crazy. It was a rowdy crowd. It was so loud there. It was unbelievable the way that they came in for that game in Seattle. Well, for both of them, especially in game 4. So ultimately, it's got to be by committee, and we know the issues with the Avalanche right now. They don't have much of a committee to go by outside of their stars, but on defense, they do. This is the same blue line they won the Stanley Cup with. No excuses there. Those guys got to step up.
All right. So the last couple of games in this series have been very slow starts for the Avs. Kind of all of them have, but the last 2 especially. What do you think the source is for these slow starts for Colorado?
I wish there was a way to answer this with just one specific thing. I think ultimately what's happening is the Kraken are a really good team. And they are deep. They have depth. They're rolling 4 lines on the Avalanche. They're playing a strong forecheck. It's very reminiscent of the 2003 recently expansion team Minnesota Wild that beat an Avalanche team that had a bunch of legends on it. Hall of Famers, Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh. Obviously, this time around, it's a little bit different because a lot of the Avalanche's potential future Hall of Famers are not playing tonight and have missed the series. In Gabe's case, Val's missed half the series and so on. But Seattle's a really good team, and I think that's one of the big issues. It's something Nathan MacKinnon mentioned in his post-game presser. I think game 3 it was. Maybe it was game 4 in Seattle where he told us that, Seattle's the toughest first-round opponent he's faced. And the reality is, the Avs played Nashville in 2018 when they squeaked into the playoffs. They lost in 6 against a Nashville team that went to the Cup final. But then 2019, they beat the Calgary Flames in 5. 2020, they beat who did they beat in 2020? Arizona in 5. 2021, they swept the Blues. 2022, they swept the Preds. Obviously, the only other first-round series McKinnon's had was 2014 when they lost to Minnesota in 7. But the way Seattle is playing, the way that team is rallying as a group and playing their systems well behind Coach Dave Haxtell is giving the Avs a lot of issues, especially early. The no excuse part of me wants to say it's been 4 games now, and you got to come out better. If you're the Avs, if you're the coaching staff, you've figured out what the Kraken are doing well off the opening draw, and you're finding a way to mitigate that. And I've been saying this for 3 games now, but it's something you can hold on to with a Stanley Cup champion with MacKinnon, right, and guys like that on their team. I genuinely think this is the game the Avs come out better, especially knowing that it's 2-2, especially knowing Cale Makar won't be available tonight, especially knowing Val Nichushkin likely won't play in the series, and you don't have Gabe Landeskog either.
No. All right. Well, speaking of Val Nichushkin, do you have any updates for him?
Absolutely nothing. I have a little bit. I wish I did. I mean, there's a lot of murmurs that he's not going to be available anytime soon. There's a lot of rumors out there about what's going on. I have a little bit of an idea of what's been going on with Val. We did a little bit of research, myself and some of the other reporters, when we were out in Seattle. Nothing's been confirmed yet, so that's why nothing's been shared publicly from the reporters that were out in Seattle. It's ultimately what we can share, and what I can share is between morning skate, which Val was a maintenance, so he missed that morning skate Saturday for game 3. Between morning skate and the game, which the puck dropped at 7 p.m. local in Seattle, so during the hours of 11:30 and 7 p.m., something happened when the Avalanche were at their hotel that caused Avalanche security to take Val Nichushkin to the airport so he can leave town.
Okay.
That's all we do know. So
Okay.
Val was not there. He was not around when the game ends and we go down to talk to players. We always run into Darren Helm and we run into Jack Johnson and Curtis McDermott, Brad Hunt, Gabe Landeskog. Whoever's not playing that day, today will be Cale Makar. Whoever's not playing that day, those faces are present. They're wearing their suits. They come out of their suite. I think they stand with the GMs or wherever they stay, downstairs by the locker room area. We see them all the time. We did not see Val after game 3. We did obviously not see him in the morning or in the evening of game 4. That's all that's confirmed right now. Everything else you're reading is, or you're hearing, is speculation or unconfirmed or predictions. It's nothing that you want to dig into until we know for sure what the case is. But ultimately, there are a lot of murmurs out there that the Avalanche don't expect Val to be back anytime soon. It's not even on their radar.
Wow.
So already without Gabe Landeskog tonight, no Cale Makar. You lost Burakovsky and Kadri in the summer. Now without Val Nichushkin, those are 5 massive pieces of the team that won the Stanley Cup. Despite Berkey not playing in Game 6, he scored the game winner in Game 1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was a big piece there. I think he scored in Game 2 as well. And without those pieces, it's by committee. This team is not the team it was last year. Jared Bednar tells us that all the time. It might not be their year because of that, but ultimately the reality is you still have the guys in there to get you past this series at least. And that's the goal right now. You got to win game 5 and have 2 shots at winning this thing rather than lose game 5 and have to win the next 2 or you're out.
All right, Arif. Well, thank you so much. A big game 5 tonight in Ball Arena. The series is tied 2-2. The Avalanche looking to hopefully make that 3-2 before heading back to Seattle. Thank you, Arif. Enjoy tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.